totally unfair. And the people from Windsor-Essex, I'm sorry.
Windsor-Essex is the only region in Ontario to stay in stage 1, as Ford places blame squarely on farmers and workers in the region who aren't getting tested for COVID-19.
Some people are nervous to come because when you hear it's a country that has many cases, it causes some anxiety.
So what is life like for a migrant worker in Essex County? COVID cases for farm workers increased by double digits today as another migrant worker at an Ontario farm dies after testing positive for the virus. A live look outside right now, 25 degrees with a risk of thunderstorms into the evening. Feels like 33 right now. We'll be taking a look at this forecast for the week, plus video of an interesting crossing on the Detroit River when Nick Sirkovich joins us tonight. I'm Chris Ensing. Thanks for watching. Frustration and disappointment. Business owners and the mayor of Windsor upset that this region will not enter the next stage of reopening this week. Windsor-Essex, the only part of the province still stuck in stage 1, and some businesses now plan to go rogue. Dale Molnar with the story.
The agricultural sector is holding everyone back.
Mayor Drew Dilkins says the health unit should have acted a long time ago to get a handle on the COVID-19 cases among farm workers. Now he's calling on the farm operators to act.
As the mayor of the city of Windsor, I'm asking emphatically for farm operators to do the right thing and get all the workers tested.
The mayor says the workers should be required to get tested and show they are negative before they're allowed to work on a farm operation. Even though he's not in favor of opening up this area while other parts of the county stay at Phase 1, the Chamber of Commerce is. The Chamber also wants to see this area get a financial relief package for businesses in the area. The mayor talked about that with the Premier today as well. The local NDP MPPs are also calling on the province to allow the area to go to stage 2 and say the province needs to act on a plan of testing, tracing, and containment in the farm sector. Meanwhile, the president of the Erie Street BIA is the owner of Mezzo Restaurant, and he's planning on going rogue, along with some other restaurants, hair salons, gyms, and other businesses. About 100 of them. They plan to open on July 1st, regardless of what stage we're at.
I'm very shocked to hear that we're not reopening, and when the health official announced that masks are mandatory, I thought that would be a sign that we will be reopening into phase 2, but so super disappointed.
The owner of this hair salon is concerned about losing her license if she goes rogue, but she says her clients are furious.
Absolutely shocked. I feel that Windsor is paying a price that they don't deserve. I think that what's happening in the county is not coming from here.
While the Chamber of Commerce can't condone going rogue on July 1st, the mayor says he understands their frustration and calls this a tipping point and a crisis for the business community.
And I hope that we can get over the hump in a reasonable way without them having to become quote-unquote lawbreakers, opening a patio. But I'll tell you, if we don't see any traction, it would be my recommendation to City Council that we don't undertake any enforcement.
The group of businesses, which are calling themselves Open Ontario, plan to hold a rally in front of the health unit offices this Wednesday. The mayor says he will be there to support them. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Meanwhile, Premier Ford is pointing fingers at farmers, saying that they're not cooperating and that if things don't change, he's willing to go to the extremes.
Farmers just aren't cooperating. They aren't sending out the people to get tested. We got to bang our heads off the wall and figure out why. It's good for the farmers, good for your workers, good for the food supply chain on safety. They're phenomenal people down there, great farmers. I've met a tremendous amount of them. And guys, until you cooperate, and we can't force anyone to get testing. And I guess when my plea was happening last week too, it was just kind of brushed off like, oh, well, okay, not a problem. You're affecting the largest region. And it's not fair to the people of Windsor. It's not fair to other people doing what you're doing to people. It's not fair for the region.
This all happening as COVID-19 claims the life of a third migrant worker in Ontario, a 55-year-old who had been coming to Canada to work for a decade, a Mexican father of 4. He was employed by Scotland Group at a large-scale farming operation near Simcoe, Ontario. That farm has been linked to 217 cases of the disease, the vast majority among migrant workers. In Windsor-Essex, there have been 66 new cases of COVID-19 since Friday. 52 of them are agri-farm workers. Meanwhile, Mexico says that it has reached a deal with the federal government to resume sending temporary workers to Canada. The country pressed pause last week after the first 2 Mexican workers died of COVID-19 in Essex County. But now comes an agreement with a promise to streamline communication between the countries. Service Canada will help with inspections and assessing outbreaks. There's 7 at agricultural workplaces in Leamington and Kingsville as of today. And there's also a move to re-educate employers about their obligations. Trudeau spoke on that earlier today.
We brought in strong measures around mandatory quarantines for arriving temporary foreign workers and have rules in place that protect those workers. Obviously, there are cases in which those rules were not followed, and we are extremely concerned by that, and there will be consequences for companies that did not follow the rules designed to protect workers in Canada. So we will continue to work with Mexico and other countries to ensure that the systems are in place, that their citizens are protected while they're working here, even as we continue to receive people to work on our farms right across the country.
And while migrant workers themselves have been in the spotlight, it's rare to hear directly from them. Sometimes they're afraid to speak out because they fear what the companies they work for could do. Our Jacob Barker went to Leamington, had a chat with a few workers about what's going on. Jacob, what were those conversations like?
Yeah, Chris, well, I went down to Erie Street in Leamington yesterday to check in with the workers, and what I found was a pretty vibrant area. Mexican music was coming out of a restaurant there. A lineup of workers was waiting to send cash back to their home countries and some groceries while they were out. It wasn't hard to find people to talk to, but there was a bit of a language barrier, and using the power of Google Translate, I was able to have somewhat of a conversation with some of them. And those that I did speak with are here to work, and they want to provide for their families back home. I spoke with a few different workers who all told me they feel comfortable on the farms where they live. They recognize that the virus is present and growing in the area and express regret that it's claimed the lives of now 3 workers in the province, 2 in their area. But they said that they're comfortable with the protocols being put in place by their companies to protect them, and say that's what's important to follow to stay safe. One worker told me they clean and disinfect everything 3 to 4 times daily, practice social distancing, and their rooms, some of them have their own living quarters. Others I spoke with said they had to share, but they felt there was more than enough room to stay safe. One worker I spoke with actually told me he feels more comfortable on the farm where he works than he does going out into public. And they only go out to grocery shop once every 15 days. And when they do decide to go out, there is a bit of a sense of panic that sets in. They're concerned about getting infected. And each of the workers that I did speak with had been tested for COVID-19 and were awaiting results. Here's some of what they had to say, and just to note that some of them did request to stay anonymous or just provide their first name, and we did respect that.
Some people are nervous to come because when you hear it's a country that has many cases, it causes some anxiety. But as long as you follow the safety measures, you just keep working through it. I'm not worried, I'm calm. God willing, everything will be fine.
Interesting there to hear about the anxious nature and the calm nature of those 2 people. But there was another meeting today, Barker. Growers, they could hear directly from the Ministry of Labor. You were on that call. What was your takeaway?
Well, this meeting was essentially a way for workplaces to wrap their heads around what they need to follow, the rules they need to follow when it comes to working and living conditions. It was led by the Ontario Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association. Greenhouse growers took part in it. They went over things like screening methods, communication with workers, physical distancing measures, use of PPE for the workers, and how to reduce the risk of the virus entering the bunkhouses. Also, the idea came up that workers should be part of the process here and should not be punished in any way for bringing their safety concerns forward. They should be part of a committee to help identify issues. Advocates have been saying for some time something workers are fearful of doing. Now, workplaces that are not found to be complying with the Occupational Health and Safety Act could face a fine of up to $1.5 million. But for one advocacy group, what really needs to change is the rules themselves, because they're not doing enough to protect workers, even when the employers are following the law.
The vast majority of the housing and working conditions that migrant workers on farms are living and working under are actually perfectly legal. The problem is not that people are not following the rules. The problem is that the rules are bad. Workers told us before they even arrived in Canada when COVID-19 hit that they were afraid to come to Canada to work because they knew that their housing and working conditions would put them at extreme risk.
Koch also spoke about the idea of giving permanent residency status to workers to increase their protection. But an interesting note from one of the workers I spoke with was that people in other countries considering coming here see Canada as an infected country, and that some of their friends back home considering to come here for work are nervous to do so. Chris?
Interesting, considering all that's happened over the last couple of weeks. Thanks for this, Jacob. A lot of talk about testing of migrant workers. There was a center in Leamington, but it was torn down last week because of poor turnout. Today, the province highlighted a pilot project happening in its place, on-farm testing.
So that's why we need to take another look at it. That's why we are asking farmers to allow the mobile assessment centers to come onto their property, to allow them to do the testing with the workers that are there. No one will be forced to be tested, of course.
Now, late this afternoon, Erie Shores Healthcare opted to put out what was going on with that first pilot project on Saturday. They tested 75 to 80 workers. That's lower than what they could do at the former migrant-focused assessment center. It also takes 2.5 hours to set up and tear down when they go to a farm. Requires a lot of people, too. 40 staff members from healthcare groups across a bunch of different organizations. Now, there's 176 farms in this area that would require proactive testing, according to Erie Shores. And to get the thousands of people tested, they can't pull it off with the current resources, they say, adding that they need multiple teams at multiple farms and are calling on more resources from the federal and provincial governments. As of today, 448 farm workers have tested positive for COVID-19. Windsor police say that they do not condone a recent post on social media by an officer about an interaction at an Arbys, going as far as launching an internal review into the matter. Here's the photo. It shows two employees appearing to take a knee, a gesture to protest against racial inequality and police violence against the Black community. The photo is from an on-duty officer taken on Friday. A spokesperson says after the officer received his order, he noticed the employees kneeling. The officer canceled his order, got his money back, snapped that photo, and left. That photo was sent to a different officer who posted it on a personal social media account with inaccurate details. According to police, in that post, he implied that the officer who took the photo was denied service and that Arbys should not count on him responding to that location if they need it. Windsor Police issued a statement saying that they don't condone that message. The Windsor Police Service respects lawful and peaceful demonstrations and has been honored to attend recent local gatherings in support of eliminating all forms of racism and discrimination.
I thought through this, and certainly the young men in that picture have a perspective. Clearly there's something that's on their mind, and I'd appreciate hearing what they think we could do better. What could we do to improve the situation that would make them feel comfortable not to have to take a knee? At the same time, I support our police as well, and I think they do a great job, and I probably, if I were the officer driving that car, I'd likely have handed the bag back as well, and so I don't feel comfortable eating what's in that bag if that's the perspective of the people who made that food.
As chair of the police board, Mayor Drew Dilkins, members of the Windsor Police Service were not available for an interview today. The Arbys restaurant in Windsor isn't commenting beyond a statement on Facebook saying that it's untrue that an officer was refused service. A Canadian woman from Michigan wants to see her hospitalized mother here in Windsor without having to self-isolate for 2 weeks. She's calling on the government to further ease travel restrictions for family members and says visiting and supporting family is just as essential and important as those who cross the border for work. The CBC's Tamina Aziz has the details.
Very anxious. Very nervous.
Anne Stavanovich is waiting to see her 94-year-old mother who is being cared for at Windsor Regional Hospital. Stavanovich lives in Michigan and just crossed the border into Canada over the weekend. She says she knew she had no time to lose when her mother's doctor told her they needed to discuss end-of-life care. Now, she has to self-isolate for 14 days before she can see her mom again. Even though she says her mother's health is now in stable condition, she's still worried her mom might not make it.
It's the thought of not seeing someone you love ever again, that you haven't seen in months.
She also says it's especially difficult to quarantine for 2 weeks because she is her mom's power of attorney, and in the meantime, it's difficult to advocate for her and provide the support she might need.
She's an amazing lady, a wonderful mother, and it's just very challenging to think that I can't say goodbye while she's still alive.
Stefanovic would like to see family members treated the same as essential workers who are allowed to cross the border back and forth without being required to self-isolate. And a professor in Toronto who specializes in family caregiving says an exception should be made for this particular situation.
It is prudent that we, provide some discretion and really think through the situations on a case-by-case basis, because this is her mother and you only have one opportunity to say goodbye.
Meanwhile, Windsor Regional Hospital says its hands are tied, and this is a cross-border issue set out by the federal government. Tamina Aziz, CBC News, Windsor.
A graduate of Massey Secondary School is proving it pays off to be an overachiever. Anish Agarwal was recently awarded a Schulich Leader Scholarship. It's worth $80,000 and should pay for most of his computer science education at the University of Waterloo. His biggest accomplishment during his time at Massey was starting the Code Reach program, which gets elementary students started with coding.
Being able to succeed and then see it come to life, you could see the joy on the children's faces. So I feel like for me, that was a big impact on me. I feel in order to get these high scholarships and stuff, and even not just for the scholarship, but for your own education for high school students and any students out there, going beyond the classroom and being able to get experiences in, but not just any experience you're passionate about, will help you get to where you want to be.
Some great tips for success there as we look at the Ambassador Bridge in the Detroit River. Looks like a boat just about to go underneath. We'll show you video of one animal that tried to get across the water the other day and why it was able to make it to where it was trying to go. Nick Sirkovich, though, will give us the details of the forecast after the break. Swimming for its dear life, an unusual sight for the Windsor Police Marine Unit. Yesterday, they witnessed this deer swimming in the Detroit River. A happy ending here. They were able to direct it to land, and the deer was able to finally set its hooves down on Fighting Island. Always interesting to see what's going on in the Detroit River. For the forecast tonight, Nick Sirkovich joins us. Nick, what do we got going on this week?
And taking a look at our weather forecast across the region here, we are looking at some very hot weather in southwestern Ontario, and that carries right through southern Ontario. Temperatures just shy of that 30 mark in Windsor right now at 29 degrees, at 27 up towards Sarnia. With the humidex, though, certainly feels warmer. 35 is what we're looking at with the humidex in Windsor, 31 in Chatham-Kent, 34 in Sarnia. Now, we haven't seen much in the way of rain at this point, but we are tracking a couple systems here. So one is to the east of us, this along a trough. Most of that is affecting the Niagara region, although we're seeing a few spotty showers pop up out towards sort of the London area, and we're going to get to that in just a sec. But what we're really watching here is this. Now, this is going to be part of a bigger system or a cold front that's going to move through. That'll bring with it some relief for all of southern Ontario, but starting with southwestern Ontario as we move through tonight and into tomorrow. Now, the little pop-up thunderstorms I talked about, that's these guys over here. Those are sort of being triggered off by a lake breeze, but really it's the stuff that's moving in tonight that we're watching. So as we move through the next 24 hours or so, starting around 4 a.m., look for showers and thunderstorms to move through the region, and then heavier rain and thunderstorms through the morning hours tomorrow across southwestern Ontario. Sort of tapers off as we head into the evening, and then as we move through Wednesday, the risk for a few spotty scattered showers, but those would be pretty short-lived. Any of the sort of heavier rain really coming tonight. And then by the time we hit Thursday, really not much to speak of, some good sunshine in the forecast. We are going to see a little bit of relief, though, from this heat and humidity as we move through the next few days. 18 degrees tonight still. There's your thunderstorms that are going to roll through through sort of the mid-overnight period. By tomorrow, still a humidex of about 31, but the temperature itself sitting at 24. Those showers and thunderstorms really coming for the morning hours. After that, it kind of tapers off. Next 3 days, temperatures a little bit closer to seasonal. The risk for a few spotty showers Wednesday and Thursday. And then into next week, or the end of the week rather, we're looking at that hot weather returning and the humidity returning once again. Chris.
Thanks for this, Nick. Nick Sirkovich with the weather tonight. And we will have plenty more to tell you after the break here, including Justin Trudeau pushing back against criticism from China. Justin Trudeau is pushing back criticism from China. He says its decision to detain and charge 2 Canadians is political. Beijing had earlier denounced his comment of a direct link between their cases and Meng Wanzhou. The Prime Minister today also rejected the idea of an exchange with China to win the release of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. David Cochran reports.
We've continued to stand up for Canadian interests and Canadian values every step of the way.
The Prime Minister has been repeating a version of that line for 18 months, but there's no sign Beijing is even listening. Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig are still in detention, now facing charges of espionage, widely viewed as hostages to secure the release of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou.
It has been obvious from the beginning that this was a political decision made by the Chinese government, and we deplore it and have from the very beginning.
It's clear how Canada sees things, equally clear China sees them differently. A Chinese spokesperson denies the detention of the 2 Michaels is arbitrary, called the Prime Minister irresponsible for linking them to Meng Wanzhou while urging Canada to release her immediately.
No, we're not considering that.
Trudeau rejected that idea or the idea of swapping Meng straight up for the Michaels, insisting the courts will decide Meng's fate, while Canada continues to solicit support from the US, the UK, and other like-minded allies.
We want to thank all of our friends and allies around the world who've consistently and continually stepped up.
Those allies have stepped up to condemn China, but they've all failed to persuade China. Meanwhile, the Michaels remain in detention 560 days and counting. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
It's sure to get a little warm this weekend across the world, and we've got a video we want to show you now of a very happy hippo. We didn't say it was big. That's baby hippo Gloria at a zoo in France. Her first dip in a big pool. Hard to believe, the 2-week-old hasn't been practicing those moves ahead of her day out. This is all off the cuff. The new mom is keeping a close eye on her firstborn, though. So far, Gloria appears to be liking her new home in the facilities. Not many of us would complain if we weighed 38 kilos and had our own private swimming pool this summer. Certainly would be nice to be able to take a dip and cool off like that. Those doggy pools, perfect for patios, but not perfect for baby hippos. That's it for us here at CBC Windsor. We're going to leave you with another shot of that deer heading across the Detroit River, because why not? This show seems to be about animals in water trying to find their way out. Once again, we want to remind you, though, for any updates on these stories and more, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media, too. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search CBC Windsor on any of those platforms, and you'll be able to find us there. Thank you very much for watching tonight, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and stay safe.